first of all, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. This is something that actually Mac Brown recommended that, that we do because your story is so important as we move forward as a museum, and you know, we're building this Bourbon Gateway, and we're telling stories of some of the great people in this industry.
Okay.
Your life has been very diverse and amazing.
Okay.
From a very different time in the world. So tell me about Elmer Lucille Allen when she was a young girl or a teenage girl, and when America was a very, very different place. What were your goals? What did you think the high end of achievement could be for you at the time?
Well, I grew up in an African-American, totally African-American community. And it was 18th and Chestnut, which is just within walking distance of Brown-Forman. And I lived in a neighborhood, and there were Jewish stores, since the only people that I really knew at that time were Jews and African Americans. And I babysat for the Jewish family, which was at Heller's Drugstore. And I really did not, I don't know what you're supposed to set goals when you're a child or not, but I don't think I really had any goals. But I went to all African American schools, went to Western Elementary, went to Madison Junior High, and went to Central High School. And I was, you know, I was just a teenager, young girl. I just grew up. My father was a Pullman porter, which was a great job for an African-American man in those days. And my mother worked out in service, what you mean, where they become maids or cooks and stuff like that. And it was my brother and my sister and I. And you don't realize that the situation you're in, because everybody's in the same situation. You know, we all live. And I began, I babysat for the Hellers, and I was telling a young man the other day, I've always worked, and there was a man next door to me named Mr. Frank Whitaker. He was taught tailoring at Central High School. And every week I would go over there and clean his house. And one of my jobs was to wash Venetian blinds. And I said when I got old, I would never have Venetian blinds in my house, because I did one room a week. You know, you wash one room, one window every week. And also, he was a tailor, so he had a cleaning shop, and I learned how to press clothes. And part of the time, I lived in the West End, but also had a grandmother who lived in the East End, which is right there at Hancock and Thinser. And when my uncle was in service, I stayed with her part of the time. And just sitting down and thinking about where you come from, and there's so many parts of your life that you don't really understand. But I'll go back even further than that when talk about on Fencer Street. When we were children, we stayed with my grandmother. And I remember the 1937 flood, and we used to go up to Bear Grass Creek. We could walk up there. And as a child, you don't realize that once this water gets to the top, where is it going? And my grandmother ended up having 6 feet of water in her home, and we came out of her house in a boat. Came out of the house in a skiff, rather. And then we went to over on, I think it was Lambton Baptist Church at that time, was located over there at Hancock and Chestnut. And then from there we went to the Pitton building. And the Pitton Temple building is what is now the Chesterfield YMCA.
Okay.
Yeah, and we stayed on the top floor there. Yeah,
so at what point did you realize that there was perhaps something better for Elmer Lucille Allen outside of a service job, which is what all the African Americans did, and were happy successfully to achieve high-end jobs there in the service industry, but at some point in your life you went, there might be more.
Well, I don't really think I knew that. I knew that I did not want to do service work. I did not want to be a school teacher. And when I went to college, in fact, I went to 2 years at Louisville Municipal College, which was the black college for University of Louisville. And that is now, which is now Simmons University at 7th in Kentucky. And I went there for 2 years. And then when U of L closed them in 1951, I went to Spalding, Nazareth, which is now Spalding University. And when I went to Louisville Municipal College, all I had was just introductory courses for all the survey courses. And then when I got to Nazareth, I took chemistry and math. That's all I took. And plus at that time, we had to take 12 hours of religion and 12 hours of philosophy. And so other than taking required courses, and then when I graduated in 1953, there were no jobs for African Americans in the chemistry field. So my very first job that I had was as a clerk typist in Indianapolis. I worked in Indianapolis as a clerk typist.
Did that make you upset? You're a chemist. You're an educated chemist, and you have to take a job as a typist?
Well, you know, but still, it's what I tell young people now. It's not that what you want, but it's a way to make a living. You know, in other words, there are people come out of college now with PhDs that can't get the jobs that they've gone to school for.
And maybe there may be a different route to get to.
To get there, that's true, that's true. And so from there, I went into med tech. I worked in Indianapolis. I lived in Indianapolis, and I was a med tech at General Hospital there, and then I was Methodist Hospital, and then I was at Community. Community Hospital was a brand new hospital that I went to, and we had helped set up the lab there. And so it's just, you know, but it was all in the chemistry. I've only really worked since I left I would only work for as a clerk typist maybe for about 3 or 4 months, or maybe. But all my life, I have been into chemistry.
So at that age of your life, did you think of yourself as a chemist, or did you even have art as an interest?
Well, art was not an interest at all. Although you don't think about art as an interest, but as a young girl, I was a Girl Scout, and I have a photograph that was in the Curio Journal of me where I sold most Girl Scout cookies. And I have a painting of myself and another young lady that appeared in the Curio Journal. And that was a painting. And then I sewed. I always taken sewing classes and made all my children's clothes. But I did not really go. I took art at high school, but I never did think of myself as an artist. And I didn't go back into art classes until after the 70s, when my youngest son was going away. And then I had arthritis, and they said clay would be the way, you know, to exercise your hands and stuff like that. So that was really my first interest into really what you call an art class.
What do you think of yourself as now?
I think of myself as an artist, a human being that cares about other people. I'm a giver, not a taker. And that I'm someone that cares about the community as a whole.
Let's talk about Brown-Forman, because you said you grew up close to there. When you got that first job at Brown-Forman, did it mean anything more significant to you? What did you feel?
Well, I tell you what, I left, well, let me tell you how I got the job at Brown-Forman. I was working for Dr. Bronner, a Jewish doctor at the University of Louisville Medical Research Center. And there was a young lady there whose uncle was the director of the lab, was the Dr. Spanier. And she said there was an opening for a chemist there, and so I applied there. And that was how I first really, but as a child, I did not even realize what Brown-Forman was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you got that job, did you realize, and were you proud? What feelings did you have?
Well, just to be doing something that you went to school to do, you know. And I tell everybody that if I had not gone, that I credit Spalding University and Nazareth College, because everything that I've done has been because of them. Yeah. And at that time, there were only 2 chemists that graduated when I came out in 1953.
Wow.
Yeah, and I went to school, and I went straight through school.
You think about your time at Brown-Forman, you think, what, was it good? Was it bad? Was it challenging?
I have so many good memories of Brown-Forman, because Brown-Forman, as it is today, when I went there in 1966, Brown-Forman was only that little block between 18th and 20th Street, that was Brown-Forman. And I tell people now that I had an opportunity to meet and see the president and the CEO every day, because their offices were on the first floor. The lab was on the first floor and the basement, was a production building. So you passed Lyons Brown and George Gardner Brown, and you spoke to them every day. And now it's as you get older and get bigger, there is a disconnect that you do not have when you see somebody every day and you speak to them.
How many other African American women in that age have access to George Gardner Brown and are talking to them every day that aren't working for him, cleaning or?
There wasn't anybody. Yeah, and so that was just part of you. You didn't even think of them as, you just spoke to them every day, not thinking about the position that they had, and so you just they were just ordinary people.
Did they think of the position that you had and see that it was unique at the time?
Well, it was unique because the lab, like I said, the lab set right next. The lab was within, say, from here to there, was from their office, and so you don't really think about what's going on, because there were 4 women in the lab, including me. There was a lady named Marge Plamp, who was an Accenture person. There was a lady named Bessie Welch, and Maggie Boston. And what I told them is that we're all here to do the same job, and we got along, and that's what we did.
Brown-Forman is, as you mentioned, a company today, worldwide company,
Yes.
And it prides itself on diversity.
Yes,
they
it
have
does.
some really great programs centered around diversity. You take any pride in knowing that you were early on in perhaps the beginning of that thinking?
Well, like I tell everybody, the knowledge that I have now, other than what I got in college, I learned at Brown-Forman, because when I went to Brown-Forman, everything was what you call wet chemistry. And as the computer age came, all the instruments became computerized. So they sent you to classes, and all of I went through VisiCalc, Lotus, and Excel. People say, what is VisiCalc? Well, VisiCalc was a spreadsheet, and which people don't realize, and that I used that. And then as you progress, is that you pick up things that you have to learn. And as far as when you had set up a database, and we was tracking all the samples that came into the lab, and the fellow said, no, that I use RBase. So he came in and he said, here's the book, we're going to sit here and do it. And I had to teach myself how to use RBase. And then when we got Microsoft Office, I learned how to track samples, and I still use all Microsoft Office products.
You're very matter of fact.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's how you got to the successful level that you're at
Yes.
Right now. But I want to know what makes you, I know your family makes you proud. That's
Yeah.
why you spend a lot of your time
Yeah.
taking care of
Yeah.
the legacy that you leave behind.
Yeah.
What personally are you most proud of?
Personally, I'm most proud of being a lady in the science field back in the 60s. When I came out of school, other words, other than the people that went to African American historical black colleges, they just weren't any. And so you had all my friends mainly now were are the other race, because you don't really have many people now. I met a lady when I was here for the Babes in Bourbon who was a chemist.
That was a pretty neat moment there.
That was very nice. That was very nice. Yes, indeed. So, but like I said, you just go and you just take life as it is, And I've been involved and have started a lot of organizations and worked in the community and just have evolved.
I bet it wasn't always easy though.
Well, I could tell people, I was telling folks, no, you have to realize, you have to know what you know. And if you can't prove what you know, then there's no point of being there. Other words, I'm here to do my job, and if I was hired to do this job, and so I'm as qualified as you are, and you go on and you do your job.
But in the 60s, there were a whole lot of people that were qualified to do jobs that they weren't getting an opportunity to do, and that other people were not allowing them to do because they were black.
Yeah. But there are companies that have come along, and as things have evolved, things happen, and a lot of things happen that you don't really realize that's going on while you're in this company, but you don't really know what's going on in other companies. Yeah.
Are you lucky that you ended up in a company like that? Is it all because of your hard work and that you got into a field that other people didn't get into at the time? I mean, how did it happen in your
Well, I think I was a hard worker. I proved myself, and when you sit down and when I think about Brown-Forman when I came in as a little company, is that Brown-Forman is nothing like it was then, because Earl Foster was made at that plant at that time. And my first job was as a junior chemist. I analyzed all the raw products, corn, rye, and malt, which had to have certain specifications. and I also analyzed the byproducts, which which then was sold as dried grains or dried solubles. And so you did those. That was my. And then as you progress, you take on other responsibilities.
What would you have said to me if 40 years ago I'd have said that you would be a featured person in a bourbon museum in Louisville, Kentucky?
I would not believe it. You don't really, you think, I don't really think of myself as anybody special, because I was just brought up to be who you are. And I hope that I set an example for a lot of others, And I sit back and I look at things that I do, like reading, writing, and communicating, are things that young people aren't doing now. Because at Brown-Forman, all of our work when I went there, we had journals, and we had secretaries, and so when you did your reports, everything was handwritten, cursive, and cursive language is now not being taught in the schools. And so you sit back and think, well, heck, sitting down and writing, you have history, and think about it. It's like I was telling you about the organization, the Women's Allied Association, is that you forget about what all you have done over a period. That's 1966, and this is 2016, and I retired in '97.
What do you think of this whole bourbon boom? I mean, we're building a bourbon museum right here where we're sitting. They're making more bourbon than they possibly can get into the barrels right now. There's a new term, bourbonism, in Louisville to talk about.
I just heard about it, yeah. But but it's so, I remember, like I say, when Old Forester only had Old Forester Early Times. I remember when they got Canadian Mist, Pepe Lopez Tequila, all these things, Jack Daniels, and it's just, Gentleman Jack, and, and you just look at, say, now, they have so many products now, and it's just amazing, to see them grow and to see that I was able to be a part of it. And what I pride with Brown-Forman is that when the young people came in, like Campbell Brown and all of them, they started out in the lab. They started in the mailroom, and then they came through the lab. So you got to know these people personally every day, so they work side by side with you.
Can this bourbon resurgence last?
Well, it's like everything else, you really can't foresee. You can hope it does, and like I tell people now, I retired in '97, and when I went to Brown-Forman, they had a time profit sharing, and you could buy stock, and they would give you so much on your stock, and I haven't worked since I retired. And I was saying, and this is something I think that we need to teach young people how to buy stock, how to invest, and that's not being taught to our young African Americans.
Stock in Brown-Forman stock is better stock than most.
It is. This is one of the better stocks. That's true. It is.
Watching someone else play you
in
performances,
yeah.
You've had more than one.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, it is so funny because the very first one was she played Nancy Clayton did the Alice Moments, and it's to see yourself and you don't think of what you're doing. You're just doing a job. You're making a living, and you don't think about it. But other words, how you do not know how other people perceive you. You walk down the street and people see you one way, but you think of yourself, I'm just an ordinary person.
Be honest with me though.
What?
There's got to be a time where you're laying in bed late at night and you go, yeah.
Well, it's like last night when I was in the bed and I thought about. I said, now, were you aware of this organization? No, women. And then the organization formed, because I was looking online about the bourbon women, and they're talking about things and about discus, and these were things that, that you see, and I saw when they built what you now call the palace across the street, and it's just amazing to see, and then to go down there, and to see all the African Americans that are there now. And when I was there, there weren't any when I first went there, that you could sit down and talk to,
This is your we're sitting in the Fraser
Yeah,
History
yeah.
Museum, the Brown family
Yeah.
obviously integral in
Yeah.
the success of this, and
Yeah.
so much more
Yeah.
in Louisville. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me from your perspective, what is the Brown family and the Fraser family meant to the arts, to medicine, to what has it meant to Louisville?
Well, let me tell you, I brought in another magazine today called The Black Achievers, and in 1981, which that was the first banquet that they had, and the first scholarship was given was by Owsley Fraser, and it was named for an African American who worked worked in the kitchen. He was a waiter. And I have that book today that you can copy it. I'll send. I have it. I have a copy of it, but I can send you a digital copy. But they have been involved in a lot of things. And I went to the Speed Museum when they opened, and I saw all the rooms that are named for them. And all the whole family was there. And I have a picture made with Christy Brown. And it's just amazing that they're human beings. They're people that you can touch. They're not a distance where you're afraid to talk to them, And this is what I've liked about Brown-Forman, even all the CEOs, that you can go and speak to them, and they recognize who you are.
I sometimes wonder what the Louisville art scene, performance, production, orchestra, the visual art, what those would look like without Brown-Forman and the people of Brown-Forman contributing to them regularly.
It would not be the same. It would not be the same because just putting their name on something means so much now. And just look and walking into my daughter lives in Florida, and she was here for Mother's Day, and I took her to the Speed on Tuesday, and we just saw the Brown's name, and because I was there for the opening of the Speed, and it's just amazing.
Tell me about your feelings about your home state. Obviously, bourbon is something that we take great pride in here. We do it.
Okay.
What do you feel about Kentucky?
Oh, Kentucky. Well, Kentucky has changed. And I hope for the better, because what you think about this is that you grow up in a community where you had unity, but as it grows older, as it widens and people get more diverse, you do not have the connectivity that you had when I grew up, where you knew your neighbor next door. You could leave your doors open, or you could your children knew each other, or they all went to the same school. Well, this isn't happening now. And you look at the public schools. If you live in one part of the city, what's taught in one public school is not taught in another public school. So your diversity is good in one sense, but it has hurt a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's everywhere. I mean, in the East End, people don't know their next door neighbor.
No, it is. It's not. Yeah.
You've achieved a great deal, and you've won a lot of awards,
Yeah.
and you've been featured in a lot of magazines.
Yeah.
Which one makes you the happiest? Which one makes you the most proud?
I'm just happy to be recognized, period. And when I say give people the flowers while they're alive, because so many times when people die and then they get awards, and their family knows it, but they don't know it. And I appreciate, and when I got my last award from the Kentucky Museum of Art and Craft, and today I was just looking, they gave me a barrel head, and before I left home, I would have taken a photograph, because when I retired, they gave me a barrel head, and Owsley Brown's name is on this barrel head. Everyone's name signed it, and I'll photograph it and give it to you. But there are just so many things that you sit back and look at, and you say, "Oh, did I do that? How did I do that? So it's amazing."
It is amazing.
Yeah.
You are still young and vibrant, so I don't want to take you to your gravestone, but you saw my last question.
Oh, yeah.
Elmer Lucille Allen, where and when that happens, what would you like it to say on your gravestone?
Oh. She was a lover of her family and her friends and her community.
Can't argue with that.
That's the best thing I can say.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Thank you.
It's been
Okay.
a great pleasure.
Okay, thank you.